So thank you very much for being here, and thanks for the organizers. Really great event. Today I'm going to talk about something that I really have at heart, which is, in our opinion, the continuum of what we see for Bitcoin, but for communication. If you think about it, there are two features of individual sovereignty, which are financial freedom and freedom of speech. And with what I'm going to show you today, peer-to-peer internet, actually, we want to commit as companies, Tether, Bitfinex, Kit, and Synonym, or Hole Punch, about boosting individual sovereignty. Okay, and let me say that today, actually, the game is rigged. Like, the internet was born to be like for peers initially, but nowadays is like basically only for corporates, and there are huge costs of infrastructure if you try to develop literally anything. And if you think about that, like how could we leverage the technologies that we already have and democratize all the computing power that we are like using every day? Because you have, for example, like really strong iPhones, or maybe you have smart TVs at home, maybe you have smart fridges or whatever, smart watches. And how can we leverage these technologies in order to actually not needing like centralization and servers? And still, like we are really dependent completely on remote data centers, which means like high cost of infrastructure and high cost of development. And if you think about it, now if you want to send a message from a smartphone to your neighbor, this message would have to travel like thousands of kilometers. Maybe here in Accra, maybe we don't have like supercomputers from big tech, or maybe I just placed somewhere else. And this message, this data has to consume bandwidth and has to travel all around like internet lines to get to these servers, coming back, and then the message will be got like to your peer close to you. How's that possible? And so we are like going on Mars, but we think that there is no way to like being decentralized and not depending on cloud, on servers, and centralized. But why? So because internet actually is not made for peers nowadays, but is made for mostly corporations and VCs. And corporation, like during the .com, like in 2000, they really well understood like how to make money, tons of money, by controlling the internet. Think about that. Most of the websites, the 70% of the websites and the applications, they are controlled by three big tech firms: Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And the business model is actually data harvesting. So to make the business model profitable, they need to control your data. They need to process and analyze your data. And in order to expand, they continue to do that. Like, it's like we are feeding them with drugs that they are actually becoming addicted, and they need them in order to be profitable and to expand even more. And the result is massive centralization that we're facing now. If you want to build up a startup, we heard a lot of like nice speech before about like startups and entrepreneurship. Like the first thing, you go probably if you need to develop a software startup, you get some credits from big cloud storage, big cloud services. And actually, this to me brings not digital security, but a single point of failure, which is good for the control of this company, but it's really bad for the users. Like some weeks ago, we had WhatsApp like off, and actually half of the world was not able to communicate anymore like on that communication layer. So this is fine, is not fine at all. So we developed Kit. Kit is a peer-to-peer video, audio, text chat application, for which we wanted to show that cloud actually is unnecessary. That if you want to develop something, a communication app and so on, you can use open source technology. And so Kit is a scalable chat app. It's fully private. It never goes down. The quality is really good, and you can transfer gigabytes of data as you want. it's free forever. So there is no token, there is nothing behind. So it's just free. It's just open source. It's based on a technique that I will explain a little bit later on, which is called hole punch. So how? It's really 100% peer-to-peer. So now basically you can basically use a framework. You're a developer, and you can use this framework in order to build up your app, such as Kit, like we did. But actually, the developers distributed all around the world can develop many different applications which can compete with Kit and can compete with WhatsApp, Telegram, or whatever, Zoom, and so on. So this creates really a new economy for developers, and they would be able, with this, to cut pieces of revenues of big tech firms. And when you have to launch a startup, as we saw also before, actually, you need to raise capital, and you need to raise high capital, maybe hundreds of millions or tens of millions, as we saw before, and maybe you need to hire also hundreds of developers. If you look at the companies that were mentioned also before, maybe they have a lot of developers. Kit was developed by one front-end developer in 6 months from his laptop. So this is so powerful. Now, basically, we can have a distributed developing power all around the world that can develop these kind of apps that can compete with big tech firms. And there are no servers at all. It's just peer-to-peer. It's developed on Hole Punch, and actually it's nothing so new. It's the technology that was behind BitTorrent, if you have used it. So it exploits that technology, but for communication in this case. So it solves many issues for developers, like how do I find a device close to the other device? How can I store a file on multiple devices? How encryption works? The developers don't need to know about encryption because it's already encrypted. And actually, peer-to-peer, there is no way that the data are not encrypted. They are stored in your hard drive, and the information leave your computer, your device, just when you send the message, basically. And so it offers a new playground for developers to develop new great applications. And I'm not selling you anything today. So we are a lucky group of companies. We were successful in what we were doing with our different companies. And there is no token behind. There is no blockchain. There is no servers. So there is no business model for us in making money out of it. It's just about creating an open source infrastructure which everyone can leverage. And it's just peer-to-peer infrastructures. And developers can focus on developing great apps because, as I said before, all the pieces are already solved. And so for us, it's not about money. It's really about sending a message. And if you see it in that way, the money part actually is solved and is being solved by Bitcoin. Cypherpunks are working on that since a long time. So Bitcoin is the solution to that. But if we want to have individual sovereignty, we need, as I said before, financial freedom and freedom of speech. And so now we need to focus also on the communication part, which is sending a message. And so big tech and VCs, the peers are coming for you. If you can dream it, you can build it on Punch. Thank you very much.
Awesome. If you can dream it, you can build it on Hole Punch.